A harrowing and heartbreaking case in Taggart tonight following a tragic series of events. It's in an hour here on ITV1. First, she's been serving in the Rovers Return for over 40 years. But that's not all in the life of Betty Driver.
There's only 2 scenes to do today in the Rovers.
It's a working day like any other for Betty Driver. But at 90, she's no ordinary soap star.
What you just said, it's the biggest load of codswallop I've ever heard in my life. Right. So off we go.
As ever, close friend and personal assistant Charles is at her side.
I had it valeted for you.
Did you? Oh, we should have had me valeted.
And today, Betty's on her way to Coronation Street to film another episode. That's 2,837, in case you were wondering.
Are you just going to stand there, watching us drown?
We're sinking, you know. We're up to our ankles. I've got to record 2 scenes. The only difficult part is I don't know my lines very well.
Never an easy job, but a little less daunting than Betty's first day on Coronation Street.
Oh, I've been that side of the bar as many times as I've been this side.
41 years ago, yeah, man and boy. It was very, very nerve-wracking to be the first day with the Rovers full of people. I thought, oh, my God. I didn't know any of them, really, but 41 years later, I'm still damn well at it.
But how many of her fans know about Betty Driver's career before Coronation Street and of a journey full of ups and downs? It's been a journey through fortunes earned and lost.
I said, where's my money? He said, what money? I said, my money that I've earned.
A journey through an unhappy marriage.
Came home one night and he said, I'm in love. I said, really? Who is it?
And a difficult childhood.
I would have done much better if she'd have been soft with me and sometimes put her arms round me and said, you're good. But she never did.
Over the next hour, we'll tell the incredible story of a life lived in the limelight.
I adore it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't. Oh, yes. They'll have to shoot me to get rid of me.
No, it cannot be.
Ooh, that's it. Morning.
Betty Williams is one of Coronation Street's best-loved characters.
Betty, when you're ready, love.
Always ready. I don't know what for, but I'm ready.
She's the heart of the Rovers Return.
Right, who's for hot pot?
Right, girls. Yeah.
And yes, the creator of Weatherfield's world-famous dish.
Hey, take 'em. Look, tell Vera if we don't get some potatoes, there'll be no hot pot for tomorrow.
Everyone wants to try Betty's hot pot, and it's good, actually. It's good.
I hope you've not been interfering with my hot pot.
I'm not sure I should tell you this, but Betty is vegetarian.
But it's her acting, not cooking, that's earned Betty a place in TV history.
Yes, the Lifetime Achievement Award goes to our wonderful Betty Driver.
She's a national heroine and much loved.
Go on, stick another drop of port in there and keep grovelling.
Betty Driver, without question, is a national institution.
Surprise, surprise, Betty!
It's a party for you!
Little is known about the woman behind the hot pot. Betty rarely gives interviews and guards her privacy fiercely. But taking in 9 decades in show business, Betty Driver's story is one of a kind.
She worked with the biggest names in showbiz. She was one of the biggest names in showbiz before she started her television career. There's not many people you can say that about.
I ran into love, walking down the street. Love ran into me, swept me.
What was Betty Driver? Radio, variety, and records. You don't get bigger than that.
How could I foretell love would bowl me over. All that when
You name it, I've done it. And all of a sudden, I'm in Coronation Street and I finish up where bloody hotpot's top of the bill and not me. And it's not fair.
Betty Driver was born in Leicester on the 20th of May, 1920. Coming into the world weighing 12 pounds, she was the first of two daughters for Frederick and Nell Driver.
When I was 2.5, my father joined the police force in Manchester and we moved up to Manchester. We had a nice home life when we were little, but it changed because my mother was so ambitious.
Desperate to be on the stage herself, Betty's mother was determined to make her daughter a star, meaning Betty's earliest memories would be of the theatre.
So my mother pushed me. She said, go on, get on the stage. I said, I'm not going over there. No, get on that stage. Threatened me if I didn't go on the stage. We get up onto the stage and this fella said, you're very, very good, aren't you? I said, oh, yes, confidence oozing. He said, well, would you like to sing the song again? I said, yes, I would, yes. And it was from there that Mother got the idea, there's a shilling or two to be made out of this one.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our North...
Seemingly a born performer, Betty was just 11 when she made her stage debut in a variety matinee at the Manchester Hippodrome.
And I was lucky, being young, a vivacious personality, and the audiences loved it. And I loved it, and that was it.
But the fame her mother craved didn't come easily, and Betty spent the next 3 years performing in theatres up and down the country.
I always felt lonely on the stage. Well, you do. You see, you go onto the stage by yourself, just with the pit band, and if you don't capture the audience within 2 minutes, you might as well come off.
Mother kept her working too much, kept her too close an eye on her, and made her life pretty miserable, really.
Now that's enough. Let's hear more about it. It wouldn't, Mum. Besides, I want to go in for the crooning competition. I know I could win it.
She was very, very strict. I mean, if I didn't do something right, she'd smack across the face or hit me hands or whatever, you know, but she was very, very difficult, really.
Sometimes they would do 4 or 5 shows a day. And that's just, when you think of it now, must have been incredibly hard.
I would have done much better if she'd have been soft with me and sometimes put her arms round me and said, you're good, but she never did.
I'm fed up with it all. Shh. Oh, and I'm sick of being shushed.
Too scared to disobey her mother, Betty's whole life revolved around being on stage. Soon she became an unhappy child, relying on her younger sister and only sibling, Frida, for support.
Frida had more guts than I had. She was 2.5 years younger than me, but she dared stand up to my mother. I daren't.
Frida was absolutely her star for life. I mean, she really looked after her completely. She relied on her for everything.
Frida was very different to Betty. She was much quieter, much more reserved, hugely observant, but above all else, hugely protective of Betty.
With Frida by her side, Betty somehow found the strength to carry on performing. And by 1934, her big break was just around the corner, or so she thought.
George Formby and his wife Beryl came to see one of the plays one afternoon and came round backstage and said, you're a clever little girl, aren't you? I said, oh, yes. Oh, yes, you know, very posh. Oh, yes, of course I am, yes. Would you like to make a film?
Now behold in me an LDV, for battle I'm just yearning.
With his toothy grin and ukulele, in the 1930s, George Formby was hot property in the entertainment industry. And he was about to embark on a film career, playing a butler in Boots, Boots.
And what are you laughing at?
Hey, you did look funny on there.
Now I will tell you of a
and after spotting Betty on stage, Formby signed her up to star alongside him.
And I filmed my bit, and of course all the crew all cheered and said, "Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful." And a voice from the back shouted, "Hang on, either that kid goes or I do."
Worried about being upstaged by a younger Betty, it's said Formby's wife Beryl demanded that she be cut out of the final film.
Cried all the way home on the train. I thought, what a damn shame. But never mind, it was experience, that's all.
It looked like Betty's career in the movies was over before it had even begun. But in 1938, as Vivien Leigh started work on Gone with the Wind, and Ginger Rogers danced up a storm in the musical Carefree, 17-year-old Betty got a call from famous film producer Basil Dean.
He said, "Would you like to do a bit of filming?" I said, "Yes, I would, I'd love it." "Oh, yeah, please." So he said, "Right, well, we'll put you under contract." I got 3 films, and I was, going to be the next Betty Davis. Wonderful, you know.
Betty! Hello, Dad. So you got your Boy Scout with you? Come on, take one of these. Wait.
Betty was still only a teenager when she was given a film contract, and she was really excited. I mean, this is like the equivalent of going to Hollywood as far as she was concerned.
Penny Paradise would be directed by Carol Reed, who went on to make his name with films like The Third Man and Oliver. And he chose Betty to play his leading lady.
Time and time again, all the greatest men prove my words to be true.
Over 70 years later, Betty still remembers her magical time on set.
And I had my 18th birthday there, and they filled my dressing room to the roof with flowers.
And that's really when her star started to really rise, and people stood up and noticed, saying, "Who is this amazing singer?"
How could I foretell that would bowl me over?
Penny Paradise was a triumph, and was quickly followed a year later by Betty's bill-topping performance in Let's Be Famous.
Walking down the street, just in time to meet me. I never thought when
I really loved making films. That's why I love television. I think if you like television and films and you can be natural, that's it.
You know, here is a woman who had limousines and furs and diamonds and lived the life of an international film star.
I've got a hunch, happy days are here again. I've got a hunch.
But the glitz and glamour weren't the whole story. Despite working since the age of 11, Betty had very little to show for all her success.
Frida and I used to have £0.50 a week each, but nothing extra. If I wanted a new pair of tights or some lipstick, I had to save up.
Her father had always looked after the money, done the banking and seen to the accountants, all the rest of it.
Went home one weekend, I said, "Dad, I don't want you to be cross with me, to start with, but I want to do my own banking."
"You're up to something. Where are you going, or shall I take you?"
So he brought it, gave me the bank book. There wasn't 1 penny in it. Not a penny. I said, "Where's my money?" He said, "What money?"
Although she'd earned a great deal of money, there wasn't anything left at all, which was a bit of a terrible shock, obviously, to, well, Frida and Betty, but Betty particularly, because well, she'd done the work, and where was the money? It had all gone.
There wasn't any, because he drank most of it himself, had a car. My mother was nicely dressed, with furs and that.
Mum, what's your game? Nothing, I tell you.
So that was 1 fortune gone.
Just a few years later, Betty would face yet more financial hardship when her marriage broke down, leaving her abroad and penniless.
Next morning I get on the phone to Frida. I said, "Will you send me some money for my fare? I haven't got a penny left." Hello, boys.
Betty Driver is back at work at the most famous pub in Britain.
Nice to see you.
And you, madam.
She's known to millions as Coronation Street's Betty Williams, the longest-serving barmaid at the Rovers Return.
How old are you?
I'm old enough to know that you're trouble. You want another? It's the same set that we've had for years and years. They keep altering little bits of it, but actually it's the same set. So we're quite used to it. We know where it all is, you know.
Can we stand by to have a little rehearsal with...
As a senior member of the cast, Betty's happy to share the tricks of the trade with her younger colleagues.
There we go! When we get a new barmaid, they usually ask me, how do I pull a pint? And I usually finish off with 2 shoes full of beer. Because, honest to God, especially little Michelle, when she first came, she pulled a pint and filled my shoes. I think, oh, charming. It doesn't matter, does it? They're all lovely.
Oh, don't, Betty. Even imagining that does things to me.
Shut up, you daft devil.
Thank you, that is clear.
Thank you, darling.
Brilliant, bye-bye.
I think everybody in the show, you know, is privileged to work alongside Betty, you know, because taken away from the fact that she's a massive star.
Okay, kiddo.
Everybody's always delighted to see her coming along because she's always got a smile and she's always got a kiss for you, you know, she's always very welcoming. And to be very honest, I've never seen her in bad form.
September 1939. Betty had just finished her second film, Let's Be Famous.
Encore, encore.
Oh, you were terrific.
You were great.
You were marvellous.
And was about to start on a third. But Britain was preparing for war. Soon film studios would be converted into government storage depots. And a visit from producer Basil Dean signalled the premature end of Betty's big screen career.
And he said, we're going to have to change studios. I said, why? He said, well, there's war is on the brink, so we're going to Elstree.
Is this right for London?
On the left.
And then war was declared. All contracts then were cancelled. So bang, gone my film career.
Now aged 19, Betty was forced back into doing what she knew best, performing in variety shows across the country, accompanied by her devoted sister and ever-present mother, when another offer came along.
I wasn't working 1 week, and my agent phoned through and said, there's a dance band, the lead singer is off ill. Would you like to go and take her place? I said, well, yes, if you like, yes.
Henry Hall conducted the BBC's resident band. He had his own radio show and a huge following with millions tuning to listen in every week. Now Betty was to be the star turn at the end of each programme.
Suddenly she was going into nearly everybody's living room once a week because everyone loved Henry Hall and they would listen in, and she became a huge household name.
Oh, the red maple leaves were falling on the day I found...
I think that was the best experience in terms of work, really, because he was, you know, he was a great sort of father figure.
Like the red maple leaves.
And when I first heard just those words her sing, what a haunting, beautiful voice.
What was Betty Driver? Radio, variety, and records. You don't get bigger than that.
I'll take romance.
In 1941, Betty turned 21, and for the first time in her life took charge of her own earnings. She continued to sing with Henry Hall and his band throughout the war, touring Europe to boost morale amongst the forces.
Where she just wanted to go and entertain the troops and the wounded, whether it was, you know, in field hospitals, whether it was on battlegrounds. She just felt that if they were doing it, it was her job to do it too, to get up there and sing and do her bit.
We had to wear uniform as well. I was a captain, naturally, which was rather nice. Henry Hall, I think he was a colonel. We all looked rather nice, you know.
She went out to some really dangerous places and she entertained the troops. She did everything that Vera Lynn did.
One performance Betty would never forget came towards the end of the war when her band was stationed at a delousing camp in Germany.
I said, you know this now, come on, sing with me. And eventually they'd sing, but there was nothing on these little dead faces. Well, I couldn't stand it. I said to Henry, I'm going in the audience, I can't stand this. And I went to one young boy, that's about 19 or 20. I sat on his knee. He started to cry. I hadn't started singing yet. I said, oh, don't cry. Just think about your mum. In a few weeks' time, you're going home. By the time the show finished, they were all smiling. And to me, the greatest achievement of my whole life.
By the end of the war, just about everyone in Britain had heard of Betty Driver. So no surprise that in 1952, she was given her own TV programme. The Betty Driver show was a massive success. And as audiences continued their love affair with Betty, she was starting a romance of her own.
Here am I telling you you're the nicest girl I've ever met.
Well, I believe that.
And the only girl I've ever loved.
And I believe that too.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wally Peterson was a South African singer who had appeared on one of Betty's radio shows. And their love affair was to change her life forever.
Wally was a very attractive man. She wanted to be with someone. She wanted to be married. She wanted to be happy, like most of us.
After a short courtship, Betty and Wally were married in London in December 1953.
In August or September, in October and
She did fall in love with him, there's no doubt about that, and he was quite an attractive man, but he was also a bit of a villain.
It was not a happy marriage. Her husband carted her off to South Africa and God knows where, and she was very unhappy.
And eventually, came home one night and he said, I'm in love. I said, really? Who is it? Next morning I get on the phone to Frida. I said, will you send me some money for my fare? I haven't got a penny left.
Frida never approved of Wally, feeling he was only interested in Betty's bank account. And by the time Betty ended the relationship, Wally had spent almost everything she had.
The marriage certainly didn't work, and it was a bad time for Betty because she was absolutely heartbroken about the whole thing.
I'm not a bitter person, but it makes you a bit bitter when you've been diddled 2 and 3 times in your life.
Betty's return to England in 1960 was far from glorious. After 7 years of marriage, she was back home, but broke.
In the late 50s, early 60s, Betty's voice started to go, and she couldn't sing like she had done in the past. So she focused more on acting, which is something that she was really interested in anyway.
With her life as a professional singer behind her, television acting offered Betty the chance of a whole new career.
Oh, come on, Sally, lass, it's only a bit of fun, and it costs now.
She played the role of Mrs. Blood in the gritty social drama Love on the Dole.
I've my time to do over again. Shouldn't turn my nose up at a fat belly, as long as it's got a gold watch chain hanging on it.
And starred in a sitcom called Pardon the Expression, a Coronation Street spin-off in which Arthur Lowe continued his role of Leonard Swindley.
Well, the kitchen's ship-shape in Bristol fashion.
Please, Mrs. Edgley, no naval terminology. My seafaring days are over.
Betty's part introduced her to the nation as a gifted comedy actress.
No, it cannot be. I belong to another.
Arthur Lowe's comedy timing was impeccable, and so was Betty's. She could match her.
Comedy timing is something you can't teach. Betty was born with it.
I say, look, would it still be all right if I give them a knife and fork each?
Oh, yes. Sedgley.
Pardon the Expression was a good experience for her because she had an audience. She really did like an audience. That was the thing that lifted her up, and she knew where she stood and how she was doing, you know.
But a scene in the final episode threatened to bring Betty's acting career to an abrupt end.
The art of self-defence. Oh, I say, what brought all this on?
She had this stunt with Arthur Lowe where his character was doing some sort of like karate and practicing on her, and he had to throw her over his shoulder, and she wasn't very keen on this.
It's purely a matter of reflexes, coordination, timing, and confidence.
So this stuntman said, look, for God's sake, Arthur, make sure you stand near to Betty, because she's got to bend down and grab your ankles through her legs and pull you and let you fall on the floor.
Here we go then.
Where does he stand? About a foot away. So, of course, I've got to bend another foot through.
You ready?
Ready.
And I heard my back crack, and I thought, oh, my God. Well, I couldn't walk. I was on 2 walking sticks when I got out of bed.
Betty's back injury left her paralysed for 8 weeks. After 40 years in entertainment, she decided enough was enough.
Of course. What else could you possibly be doing at 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon when I am showing the new vicar around?
So I phoned the agent. I said, no more dates. Finished with the career. He said, never. I said, yeah. Frida and I are going to take a pub. I said, that's the nearest thing to the theatre.
But a call out of the blue was to take Betty's career down a new path, leading her behind the bar of another public house.
Hello, Rovers Return. One day, I got a phone call from Granada saying, can I come round and see you? I said, don't be daft, it's a pub. Yes, come round and have a few drinks with us. He came round and he said, why don't you come and pull some pints in the Rovers? Will I do?
Will you do? You'll be a credit to me and to Weatherfield.
Here, here.
Betty Driver is one of the most famous faces on British television.
The most precious thing about her.
It's Turpin, the Williams, whatever she's called, getting her mugging again.
In the year 2000, after nearly 70 years in show business, one of the nation's favourite actors was awarded an MBE.
You're getting in the palace, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you speak to the Queen?
Oh, yeah.
And recently, while recovering from a knee operation, Betty received another honour which underlined her status as a national treasure.
Maybe if there's one place you can let it go, it's probably Desert. I think Betty is an ideal castaway for Desert Island Discs because she has a whole other life that people don't know about.
My agent came down the stage and said, oh, hello, Betty, darling. She said, you've met Grace, haven't you? I said, oh, it's a great pleasure. And Grace Evans looked at me from the bottom to the top. She went, likewise, I'm sure. And that's the only thing she ever said to me.
It's yours. People have been watching her for decades on Coronation Street. Everybody in Britain knows who she is, and yet she had this whole other life. She worked with the biggest names in showbiz. She was one of the biggest names in showbiz before she started a television career. There's not many people you can say that about. Betty Driver, thank you very much for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
Oh, greatest of pleasure. Lovely meeting you.
Look, would somebody mind telling me what you're on about?
Sit down, Mrs. Edgeley.
By the late 60s, and after working for 40 years, a back injury forced Betty into early retirement. Betty was running a pub in Derbyshire with her sister Frida, when she was offered a job behind the bar of the most famous pub in the land.
One day, I got a phone call from Granada saying, can I come round and see you? I said, don't be daft, it's a pub. Yes, come round and have a few drinks with us. He came round and he said, why don't you come and pull some pints in the Rovers? I said, well, I'm working here. Yes, he said, you can do the two.
And blow me down, of course, a few days later, they rang and said, well, they'd like to take her on for a couple of episodes to try something out, and she was very thrilled.
When I said, what's my character name? He said, well, what do you want? I said, oh, I don't want to be called Florrie or Ada. I said, can't I have my own name? Yes, of course you can. So that was wonderful.
So this is your famous corner shop?
It makes a nice little living.
I can see that, Pet.
Oh, and the way you've got...
Betty was 48 when she filmed her first scene on Coronation Street, but it didn't come in the Rovers. Instead, it was in the corner shop, run by her on-screen sister, Maggie.
Hey, do you remember what our mum used to call you? Methodical Mag.
Yeah, I remember what she used to call you and all.
Yeah, well, I'm none of that. What's Mag?
This wasn't the first time Coronation Street had come calling. 7 years earlier, and before Betty injured her back, she'd auditioned for the part of Hilda Ogden.
That took a long time, didn't it?
Well, he said, we're thinking of having a new character. I said, well, what is it? He said, well, she's a cleaner. I said, I don't do cleaning.
Dirty man, she said I'd got. Dirty man, and you just sat there and let her.
I ought to clip you right round the chops.
Oh, I wondered when we get round to that.
And she got down to the final two, and you know, it could have been very, very funny. Rather than Jean Alexander playing Hilda Ogden, it could have been Betty Driver.
As Betty Turpin, Betty Driver joined a long line of no-nonsense women to inhabit Coronation Street.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow I am going to my solicitor and I am suing you for defamation of character. So, Mrs. Walker, you can put your best sherry where the monkey puts his nuts. Now, do I make myself clear?
But I loved it in the olden days because you talked more. There's more action now. You know, I mean, we would do scenes in the Rovers of me, Bet and Doris Speed with a cup of coffee each before we opened the pub, talking about absolute rubbish, but it was something, and it was what people do.
He distinctly said there he'd be calling back later to see if you had returned.
Oh, might wish you hadn't when you find out who he is, eh?
I might.
What she did do was bring her wonderful personality onto the screen. And who needs anything else but Betty on the screen?
Hi, Dorothy. You're fawned and preened like a big soft dog.
You look marvellous when you're jealous, Betty.
You won't look so marvellous with the thick ear.
Betty's always been a constant force to be reckoned with.
I wouldn't touch your money with the barge pole.
Well, I would. I'm two knicker down already.
Oh, shut up.
Betty's initial contract was extended, and viewers were introduced to her hen-pecked husband, Cyril.
Your steak and kidney pie. Look, you never listen, do you?
And a dramatic storyline in 1974 introduced Betty to an actor who was to play a key role in her life on and off screen.
You could say Betty and I look like each other. We both got fat cheeks and big faces, and I know we were both very aware of that. So it was very likely that she was my mum.
I'm not your mother. Betty is.
It turned out that he was her illegitimate son. I remember Betty doing those scenes. I mean, she broke everybody's heart.
No idea what I went through when I had our Gordon. Oh, the stigma it was in those days.
For 40 years, Gordon, played by actor and impresario Bill Kenwright, has made occasional appearances in Weatherfield.
Don't look as if Caroline's back yet.
No.
Come up here.
Even now, if I get in a cab in London, in the rush hour, when I'm dashing here, then I'll always get, have you had your mum's hot pots lately?
It might be the way you behave in London, but not up here.
Oh, come off it!
I love the fact that she still talks about my Gordon and she goes down south.
So what do you think, Emily, eh? My Gordon and his wife have asked me to go down and live with them in London.
Betty would even risk going to London to see Gordon. That shows how much she loved him.
Haven't had a chance to tell you, have I?
Well,
You look a Bobby, doesn't it?
In 1995, when Betty Turpin married childhood sweetheart Billy Williams, Bill Kenwright and Betty Driver were reunited on screen again.
Her relationship with Bill Kenwright was almost like a loving surrogate son, and they got on really well.
I wish he was my son. I love him to death. Love him to death. He's gorgeous. Yes, every Valentine's Day and every Mother's Day for the last 20 years, he sends me the biggest load of flowers you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, Fred. Oh, I wish you wouldn't.
It's because she's got something so special. If you could bottle it, you'd have the keys to the kingdom.
Yes, I'm delighted to announce that the winner of the Pub Personality title is Mrs. Betty Turpin. Oh. Thank you very much, and everybody that voted for me, a little drink of this.
By 1976, Betty Driver had been in Coronation Street for 7 years and was winning plaudits everywhere.
Great story tonight, and the headline is...
Millions of viewers tuned in to see her story on This Is Your Life.
Betty Turpin of Coronation Street. Tonight, this is your life.
Oh, yeah.
After 45 years in the business, Betty Driver had become a household name to a new generation of fans. But Betty showed no sign of slowing down, with a new partnership which was to last 25 years.
I've just worked that out. You know what it shows, don't you?
No.
It shows that that's why we're the barmaids and she runs the joint. Come on, kid, get your coat on.
Hey.
Betty Driver and Julie Goodyear were to become the best of friends, both on screen and off, as they became the nation's favourite barmaids.
Come on, sit yourself down. We were excellent together, Julie and I. She knew when I was nervous, and I knew when she was. She was brilliant.
Does eyeshadow make me look like a painted doll?
I used to know what Betty was thinking, and she would know instinctively what I was thinking. That could work against us sometime and give us the giggles.
You gotta laugh, haven't you? It looks pretty funny from where I'm standing and all.
There's no need to get nasty.
We had nothing but laughter. We nearly got the sack several times for laughing.
Fred, we're moving!
Put the handbrake on!
I've got it!
The handbrake, pull it up! Pull it harder!
They had to film in the lake for 6 hours. And at one point, everyone went for lunch and just left them in the middle of the lake.
We'll just have to get his feet wet.
Oh, no, Betty. Not on your life.
I think together they were a terrific team because they weren't trying to be funny, they were just being wonderful characters.
It's like I told you before, as of right now, we are out of the hot food business, so you know what that means.
What are you trying to say, Alec? Are you saying I'm sacked?
Please don't go
Listen,
like this.
I am not stopping here 1 minute longer where I'm not wanted.
In all those years working together, we never once, truly, had one cross word. I don't know how many actors or actresses could say that.
Would I miss out on your send-off not for a gold clock?
I didn't know anything about this, do. It was all a surprise.
Well, I wanted to jump...
If you can find someone to work with like that, it halves the worry. And she was wonderful.
But she's a jolly good fellow.
Oh, she's a jolly good fellow.
Betty's days behind the bar were far from over, but soon she would have to face them without the companionship of her lifelong friend, her sister Frida.
And I owe my career completely to Frida, not my mother. Frida was fantastic.
Well, listen, Cyril, I do like my job, you know. I mean, I like going out every day and meeting people. It makes me feel sort of, well, different somehow. She told me she never...
Betty Driver's 41 years on Coronation Street have exceeded even her own expectations.
I'd just like to think that I've been kept on all this time. I must be doing something right. I just think it's wonderful. I'm so blessed and so happy.
She's now a very familiar face to the millions who tune in every week.
Right, yeah.
On Friday we've got Terry hairdresser again, but he's early.
And with that success come many demands on Betty's time.
Look at all this lot. Isn't it ridiculous?
So can you cope with
Shop
all
the
that?
restaurant.
Yes.
Oh, lovely, we'll be thrown out.
Dozens of fan letters a week still arrive at the Granada TV studios in Manchester.
I get wonderful letters from children. Oh, I think it's wonderful. I had one the other day and it said, "Dear Miss Betty Driver," which I thought's gorgeous. "I think you're the finest actress in the whole world, and I love you. 6.
2 cokes when you're ready, Betty, love.
You what?
And everybody just finds in her character either a mother or a wife or a grandmother The popular one is the grandmother Nana bit. Letters about, will you be my Nana, you know, I want to be my granny.
God, instead, lucky to have a mum like you, you know.
No, come in. Oh, bless you.
For over 40 years, Coronation Street has been a second home to Betty, full of friends who have almost become family.
And everybody in it cares about the street, and that's why it's something special. And Betty, of course, brings more than most to this. She's such a loving, caring person.
I love them all. And all the youngsters come to me, you know, come and tell me the troubles and what the baby's doing and different things. It's lovely, lovely.
But Betty's most enduring friendship was with her sister Frida. All through her life, it was Frida who had been by Betty's side on stage, in the studio and at home, even in that pub they ran together in the 60s. So it was no surprise that it was Frida who the programme makers turned to when they planned Betty's This Is Your Life.
Wait till I get you home.
Oh.
I think there's no doubt that Betty couldn't have survived in the industry as long as she did have without the support of Frida.
You know, she's very, very good like that. You know that I do everything for her. If she wants me to go anywhere with her, I will, so she wouldn't let me down. I knew she wouldn't let me down.
And it was lovely, you know, they really were very, very close sisters.
Sadly, Frida died 2 years ago, and for the first time in her life, Betty was alone.
She was by my side always. Greatest of friends, the love of my life, and I'll never get over it. I was like a ship in the middle of a sea. I didn't know what to do. I'm gonna cry, don't.
And as Frida's life slipped away, something seemed to leave Betty as well. Very, very sad. Very sad.
And I owe my career completely to Frida, not my mother. Frida was fantastic.
Happy birthday to you.
Since Frida's death, Betty has found comfort in the company of her friends on Coronation Street.
Happy birthday, dear Betty.
She is Manchester's, if not the world's, oldest and best-loved barmaid. But these days has cut back the number of hours she spends on set.
Oldest barmaid in town. It's a nice angle. When did you pour your first pint in?
Oh, let me see. That would be, 1969. I mean, it's very, very hard work now. You have to learn your lines at home, and you're really supposed to be word perfect to go onto the set, which I am.
You don't want to work until 3 in the morning, do you?
Well, yeah, I always do.
Well, not anymore, you're too old.
Who said?
She gets on with it, she doesn't mess around. She's, get on with it is Betty's password, I would say.
Betty, you're 100 if you're a day. You deserve a
You deserve a clout.
She's not here every day now. She's not in every episode. So actually, when you get Betty in an episode, it's something to be treasured. It's always exquisite seeing Betty.
I've got to get through. I'm the bearer of important news.
Norris, what are you doing?
Not a year goes by without the papers running a story about Betty leaving the street.
Oh, that's where you're wrong, because Betty has got a job here for as long as she wants it.
Yeah, she's our very own asset in Crimpeline, aren't you?
She is part of the Rovers. She's part of the street. And she's just there, and I want her to be there forever.
Well, I'm keeping out of it. I mean, I'll serve anybody, you know. I mean, I'm serving you, aren't I?
I can't imagine Betty not working. She's always worked. She likes working.
If it's good enough for Dame Judy, it's good enough for me.
She won't return. If she does, she'll phone me and I'll talk her out of it.
Oh, lay me neck. Oh, that stupid thing.
Coronation Street without Betty Driver, it'd be like ripping the heart out of something. It wouldn't be the same place.
The Rovers without Betty Williams behind the bar, it'd be like the Ravens leaving the Tower of London.
Folks will soon get used to it.
Action.
Tina, lovey, listen, keep the vol-au-vents round the front, you know.
It seems this is one barmaid who's still got plenty more pints to pull. Just take it from Betty.
Oh, good Lord, I love it to death. They'll have to shoot me to get rid of me. I mean, they've told me I can stay as long as I want to, leave when I want to, and it's a wonderful way to be, you know.
Betty, when you're ready, love.
I'm always ready. I don't know what for. Look, search me. I just stand here and serve drinks.
I knew you weren't listening.
Bacon! If I were 20 years younger, I wouldn't fancy his chances on the back row.
Hello, everyone. This is Henry Hall speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Betty Driver.
Something tells me you're not taking me seriously.
Yes, I am. Look, I'm not laughing.
Betty, I've been looking all over for you.
Do you want to take me out tomorrow, Bert?
Of course I do. That's right, Betty, give us a song.
Come on, Betty,
sing.
I want to die working. Oh, yes. But, you know, I've travelled all over the world. I've been top of the bill all my life since 14. I've always been a leading lady. I've never played second fiddle to anybody. And now it's that bloody hot pot. It's top of the bill, not me. I can chuck it through the window.
Right, who's for hot pot?
Right, girls, come on, we're out of here.
What, all of us?
All of us.